Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Alpha Life here. We are gonna be moving on our series with a new frigate, with a different frigate, a Republic fleet Firetail, and as you can see, I really love the way this ship looks. It just looks so menacing, especially from the front, and with this skin it looks absolutely gorgeous. So, what are we going to be using this frigate for if we are in the cruisers lineup? Well, first of all, we're gonna be doing a very special activity with it, just like with the Galenti side of the series. We are gonna be using this particular ship to run the Bloodstained Stars, the Sisters of Eve Epic Arc. This is going to be really nice, really good, and really amazing. I know most people suggest that you actually run those in the destroyers, but I like doing them in frigates because they are a little bit faster, and for all those jumps and all those warps in and outs, it's actually a pretty good ship. So let's move on to the fitting and see what we actually have. As you will be able to see, I have run it very recently, that's why I have a little bit of stuff in my cargo hold, but let's simulate and take out all that clutter, all those things that I've been looting. The civilian relic analyzer they actually give to us for free during a mission because we need to use it, but I will explain that part in a little bit. Just let me clear up these things. As you can see, the price is 15.6 million. It's a little bit on the more expensive side, but I really do recommend it. Maybe for your first run of the Bloodstained Stars, you may want to just do it in a destroyer, a cheaper destroyer, but I really do recommend that you run them in frigates because the process will be a lot faster, and running them at a 4 hours time on average, well, you're gonna want to take every second you can. So, this is the fit that we're actually going to be using for the last two missions, especially for the main boss fight, for the Dagon fight. That is going to be our main use for this fit because we have autocannons and rockets that puts us at 150 DPS, and that's gonna be really important because I think I read in Eve University, again I really do recommend you check out that site, that they can tank 100 DPS per second. So we want to do more than 100 DPS, and this is going to be great because we get enough more, not extreme amounts, not even the Fed Navy Comet amounts, but we are doing great, and because we're hitting in his right resistance, in his lowest resistance explosive damage, we are actually going to be running it a little bit faster. So let's move on to the fit and start up with the high slots right here. We're going to be using two 200mm light scout cannon ones to again do as much damage as possible, as close range as possible, because we don't want him to be able to hit us, we don't want his guns to be able to track us. And we're gonna use an OE 50 to 100 rocket launcher with Nova rockets. Of course, for the final fight, we're going to use Nova rockets and Fusion S ammunition because the lowest resistance of Tegan is going to be explosive. Next, let's move on to our mid slots, which are mainly going to remain constant through the duration of the Epic Arc. We're gonna start off with a 1MN YS8 compact Afterburner, then a small Clarity Ward Enduring Shield Booster, and an X5 Enduring Stasis Webifier. Why Enduring ones? Well, because that cap stability, as you can see, we're only 1% cap stable, so we want to get as much time of this much of running as possible, and just that cap stability means that we can keep them running forever, which is going to be really nice. Next up, we're going to be using a small compact PV acid cap battery, again to help us with that cap stability a little bit. Next, for the low slots, we're gonna use two Gyrostabilizers Tech 2 and one Counterbalanced Compact Gyrostabilizer, because as you can see, our CPU is a little bit tight, it's a little bit of a tight fit, and it's gonna be a little bit of an issue if we change guns, because we're gonna be using different guns for most of the Epic Arc, but we will get right to it in a little bit. Next up, for the rigs, we're gonna be using small Projectile Burst Aerator 1, a small EM shield reinforcer, and a small thermal shield reinforcer. Let me just get that volume a little bit lower. But yeah, next up in the cargo hold is going to be our stuff for changing our fit so that we can absolutely do every single mission, either combat or carrier or anything else that we need. And because most of the enemies are going to start up a little further away, we want to start with those 280 scout artillery ones because we want to hit as far as possible, and they give me a 20-kilometer fall of range, which is going to be really, really good. The civilian relic analyzer, again, they give to us for free. You don't need to have this one in your fitting, but it's good to consider. On that mission that they give you the relic analyzer, I suggest that you take out the PV acid cap battery and leave the rest inside because you get a little bit of combat, but not enough to warrant that cap stability, and you shouldn't really have any problems tanking. Next up, we're going to have ammunition, but most important, we're going to have two expanded cargo hold ones. Why? Because there's a mission where we need to carry 150 cubic meters of one crate, so it needs to be just one trip, and we really want to get that in as fast as possible. And in our fleet, we need those two expanded cargo hold twos to be able to do it. You can, of course, run it with Tech ones or with meta modules, but I like just leaving everything in the cargo hold, and they are not that expensive, so I thought it was absolutely worth it. Next up, we're going to have a Fourier compact tracking enhancer. Why? Because when we fit those scout artillery ones, we're going to have a CPU problem. We're going to be over our CPU, so we're going to take out the Tech 1 Gyrostabilizer and instead put a Fourier compact tracking enhancer so that it can still help us hit those rats a little bit better, because artillery cannons are really slow for tracking and for moving, so we want to give them a little bit of a helping hand. Next up for the ammunition, well, I used 1,000 run. Well, I fit in 1,000 runs of EMP S and 1,000 runs of plasma of phased plasma S. And as you can see, with 300 or 500, if you want to be on the safe side, you're gonna have more than enough. And 1,500 rounds of Fusion S. Of course, this is the one that we use the most ammunition of because it's the ammo that we're going to be using for a few missions and for the Dagon fight. So I do recommend you get at least 600, preferably 700 to 1,000 rounds of Fusion S. I really do recommend it. And around 300 rounds of Nova rockets. Of course, I began with only one volley, only one full refill of rockets, and I had to buy a few more because I actually ran out of rockets. But you shouldn't really have any problems. When I was running it, I actually came to the Heck trade hub, so I just bought some rockets before the last two missions and got into it. Then we're gonna be looking at two particular recordings. One will be the Tegan fight, but before that, we're going to be looking at another one of the bosses that we're gonna fight in this epic arc because he actually nuts us a little bit. And for that one, we're gonna be using the EMP ammunition, but that's why we want the cap stability. Thanks to the cap stability, I didn't have any problems running it. Of course, I turned off the Afterburner and orbited him, I think, around 7,500 kilometers, so that our artillery guns would have no problem tracking. But yeah, that's why I really do recommend that you use this feat as cap stable as possible, because we will get that one guy that's gonna take a little bit from our capacitor, not too much, but just something to take under account if you're trying a fit that is not exactly cap stable. So let's see how we're going to fit for most of the epic arc, for most of the duration of the epic arc, and at least for the beginning. Let's take out these guns, put up the artillery guns so that you can give yourselves an idea of how much DPS we're doing. And as you can see, we're already having a problem with the CPU, but because we are really going to be using the rigs, we are going to have a small projectile burst Aerator to help us with the DPS, an EM shield reinforcer, and a thermal shield reinforcer to help us with those resistances, because we will be fighting different kinds of rats. But yeah, here we will just take out our Gyrostabilizer, the Tech 1, and fit the compact tracking enhancer. And as you can see, our CPU gets a little bit of a breather. And of course, we want to see what kind of ranges we're going to be having with this one. We're going to have 122 DPS, which is going to be more than enough for all the rats. I didn't have any issues at all. I didn't have any DPS issues or any other kind of issues. And we're gonna be having a range from 7,000 kilometers to 20 kilometers, so that's actually going to be really, really good range. And if they get under 10 kilometers, just to help those guns track better and apply more damage, use the web. It's not a problem, and it's gonna make things and life a little bit easier for you. So yeah, let's move on to those recordings, and let's start off with the first one that actually nuts us a little bit. But yeah, this is going to be a great fit. I really do recommend, especially if you're starting out, to run the Epic Arc. It's gonna help you a lot with your empire standings. You can choose one of the four main empires. So you can see I began with the Caldari state and got a really good buff up because I like going to Jira to the trade hub and I want to get those taxes as low as possible. So yeah, it's been great. Let's get out of the station and move on to those recordings.
Warp drive active. Warp drive active. drive active. Warp drive active. Warp drive active. Warp drive active.